Alright, so you can see that obviously it went into part of the body there, but these two curves are the intersection between these two extruded surfaces. So from the front plane where we drew that, it's going to extrude in that normal direction, and same thing from the top plane here. And when I drew these sketches, I didn't actually add any relations to these outside points. So what it's going to do is, I think they're probably pretty close to the same, but that front line was actually just a little bit shorter than the one I drew on the top plane. So it's going to take the shorter one essentially for the longest length. If I was trying to create some exact geometry out of this, like if I had to hit the end of that wing, I would add some, go back and add some relations to those. Let me just delete these real quick. So on this top plane, actually that's the first sketch. Alright, so in this sketch I would probably come in and I would grab that and I would add a vertical relation, and you can see that moved the line. Then I come back and that'll change this line here, it'll bring it out to be equal to both of those. Alright, so what I'm going to do with this is actually create the wing. So let's look at the top again, because that's really where we're going to get the best representation of this wing. And let's look at the side. Now our body is masking the side here, but you can see here's our 3D curve. Now this is way back at the front plane or the right plane, and this is out here in the end. So you can see the wing has a little bit of curvature when we're looking at this direction. I'm going to flip this around. You can see we don't really have a good representation of the wing on this blueprint, and that's always going to be a problem when if you're actually designing a wing. You're going to know the specific geometry of the wing from the cross sections of this, because when they create these, there's going to be basically a 2D profile to lay the wing out. When we look at this thing from the front, we get a little bit of an idea of the wing and how it's shaped and how wide it gets up here. So let's think about this. On the front plane, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw another spline here. And what I want to do is I want to show you something. Let me turn these blueprints off. Alright, so one of the issues with using projected curves is a lot of times it's going to be hard to apply relations to the endpoints of these curves. Like you can see here, I've selected both of these endpoints, but I'm getting no options other than fix for my relation. So what I would do, I'm going to select it and I'm going to use convert entities, and I'm going to make that a construction line. And the reason I use convert entities is it'll project that into my current sketch here. And what that'll allow me to do is I can come back here now. Now I can select that endpoint, this one, and you can see I've got my options here. I'm going to go ahead and add a vertical relation. I'm assuming the end of this wing is going to be vertical, and really for the purposes of our model, it's not really a concern. If it wasn't vertical or there was any sort of geometry to it, we wouldn't really care. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that front sketch, the front blueprint back on. This all looks pretty good. It's essentially a straight line, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to go ahead and just OK that. And what I'm going to do is, from our top view, let's look at that thing again. Alright, now if you think about this, there was a small mistake I made there. So what I did was, from the front view and from the top view, I drew the profile of the top of the wing, and then here I actually drew the profile of the front of the wing. So really, if you think about it, this from the front view should have been the center of the wing, because the leading edge of this thing is going to come to a point. Well, I mean, it's going to be rounded off, but it's not going to be the top of that wing. And that's going to probably cause us some issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Sketch 24, look at this thing from the front, and I'm going to readdress this. So we had a coincident relation with that horizontal line, which we don't want. So I'm just going to drag this thing down, and I'm going to drag this down. Now if you remember, I went back in and I edited the top-down sketch to make that endpoint vertical with this one. So if I drag this thing way out here or way in here, that the other line is going to follow that, and I don't have to worry too much about my projected curve not being able to rebuild itself. Alright, so I still want to keep some of that curvature in there, and that looks like it's a pretty good representation of the center of the wing. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that and turn this off, turn that off, and look at what we have here. Alright, so that is essentially the center of the wing now, as opposed to, the center of the front of the wing. And that's really what we want. So I'm going to come back into this next one, this 26, and think about this. Alright, there's no reason for me to have the bottom of the wing here in this sketch. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that. I don't need it. But what I do need is the Sketch 24, which was our front. I'm gonna go ahead and make that visible, and I am going to sketch another line on the top. What I'm going to do here is we have basically our center for the front. What I want to do is I want to create the same thing but for the back of the wing. Alright, same thing we want to do is we're going to take that and we're going to project it into our sketch. I'm going to make it construction, and then I'm going to give this a vertical reference, a vertical relation. Back here, I don't really know what the curvature is going to be, but I'm going to add a little bit of curvature. When you're looking at these models in just in your modeling environment here or in renders, you're definitely going to be able to pick out a straight line versus slight arc. So giving these things a slight arc, obviously we can't really tell very well from this pixelated drawing, but giving these things a slight arc is going to look softer in the renders and give you a little bit better appearance of the overall model. Alright, so what I'm going to do, another projected curve. This time I'm going to reuse the curve we used for the front projected, and I'm going to go ahead and OK that, turn off this top, and now I can go ahead and hide that. And you'll notice whenever you use these multiple times, you'll get this little hand icon down here, and that just means that you're sharing that sketch with multiple operations. So you can see here, Sketch 24, its children. The Sketch 25, we added that vertical relation between the endpoints, so it relates back to Sketch 25 there. Curve 1 we used, and Curve 2 we used it. So you can see the features that we used it, and then the sketches that use it for some sort of relation. You can see here front plane and some sort of reference to this blueprint, and that's because we snapped to the reference lines that I put in those original blueprints. And if you actually think about this, if you went back and when you lay these blueprints out and you put a bunch of different references in here and you snap to these points when you're creating these curves, it'd be very easy for you to come back to that original blueprint sketch and make small adjustments or even make big adjustments and know that your curves are going to update. And that's the really important part about fully defining your sketches. If you had a spline here but you didn't have a horizontal relation and you went back to an original sketch and you move things around, you don't know what's going to happen to that spline here. If you keep these relations and if you fully define them at all these points, you're going to know exactly how things are going to change when you come back in here. Alright, so now we're looking at this thing, and this is essentially the center line of the wing as you're looking at it from the front or the back. We know these 2 points, looking at them from the top or from the front, are going to be at the same point. So obviously you can't differentiate between these two looking at them from the front, and that's because we use the same front view sketch to to project both of those. And when we look at them from the top,